And we're live. Welcome to Ear Full of Dirt, the Major League Rugby podcast. Thank you for joining us. Corey used to say a lot, but if you want to check out his podcast, it's called Pop Culture Shock. I think
Pop Culture Crush.
Pop Culture Crush. I think Pop Culture Shock is another podcast, but that's a podcast he's doing with his wife. I think they wake up at like 5 a.m. on Saturday to record that, so that's the reason why he's not here.
That's dedication.
Standard in Iowa.
He's pretty busy.
Up at 5 a.m. Saturday.
I'm Aaron Castro in Arizona. As always, I'm joined by Lee and Poach in Salem, Mass. Where they had the witch trials, and Craig Gradelli in New York. So, how's everyone's week been?
It's been busy. Definitely been busy, but I'm glad to be hosting and I'm glad to be looking forward to MLR Season 3. Finally. It's game week, baby. No more of this American football business.
Game week. And, past week was very exciting. Some major sporting events. Of course, I'm talking about the Six Nations. Fantastic.
Yep. I'm glad I was able to drop in and watch some Six Nations,
just watch the So Craig definitely picked England. I picked England. Thank you, England, for screwing that one up.
That's okay. I
loved it. I loved watching every second.
I'll take a wrong pick to see a Six Nations where after round one, other than Italy, could any of the other five nations win? Who is really out of it at this point? It looks pretty even. I like it.
Well, if you continue dropping the ball as you go to put it down in the end goal, if that's going to be a regular thing for your team, then I don't think you're going to win.
Yeah,
honestly, that just encapsulates Scotland for me.
Oh yeah, that was insane.
It's just everything. It's like the bad luck, crappy fans. Just it all came together in that one moment.
That one was rough, and then also Johnny Sexton faking an injury to his mouth. That was great. We'll see if he gets fined. We'll see if he gets fined. I'm sorry. We could just step our game up, Johnny. But so DuPont and Patrick Mahomes need to be boys. You don't put on a performance at scrum half like that without becoming world famous. So good for him.
DuPont didn't throw any interceptions. Just saying.
But he won the game. Mahomes won the game. When I would say that the Garoppolo Shanahan press conference after the game is probably exactly like the Eddie Jones and Owen Farrell press conference after the game. Like that, if you could just take that, just watch that, and you bypass the Shanahan, Garoppolo press conference and whatnot. And it was just when they were up 20-10, I was like, this is over. And then they just didn't do anything. It was
just standard Kansas City operating procedure.
Just go down.
Take it from a Patriots fan. When in doubt, Kyle Shanahan will blow the lead. Oh, baby, did it come? It was just a direct parallel to the 28-3. It's like, I'm going to throw it on first and second down. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
how about the Tom Brady Hulu fake out?
Man.
Oh my God, Tommy B. I thought he was going to announce his retirement. That was my pick.
That was an intentional troll job. He clearly was trying to trick you to think he was going to announce his retirement.
Give it up to Hulu, man. Great commercial.
Joke. He was wearing a turtleneck because Giselle laid on some hickeys. Just be real.
Oh, definitely, dude. But that's what happens when you're a king and queen. You get to do stuff like that.
It was a good game. It definitely wasn't boring. The halftime show was entertaining. I guess there were two political ads. One of them I didn't even know was there. I was reading Twitter this morning. I was like, really? There was a Bloomberg ad? There was?
What is there not a Bloomberg ad? Like every YouTube video, every Spotify playlist that you're not paying for. I
wish I was a
Bloomberg and Steyer, whatever the heck that dude's name is.
So,
Once upon a time, I got a Bloomberg scholarship to college. So thanks, Mike. You put commercials wherever you'd like.
Oh, nice. So, all right, moving on.
That rugby thing, right?
We had to touch on the game because that's what 103 million people watched in this country yesterday. So that is a cultural experience, as we've previously talked about. But to get into what we're going to look at this week, we're back. We'll look at week 1. We will be back every night on every Monday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, I think, at least until the time changes, and then we're all kind of screwed because I have a class on Monday nights. But we're going to predict our outcomes for, obviously week 1 in our preview here, but the season, because people have asked us about that. We did touch on it during the preseason, but maybe we should actually, now that the preseason has come and gone, hit it up pretty hard, and then answers to questions from Bob B. Boberson, aka hey Bob, you want to sponsor that segment? Because we named it after you. Just saying. But we'll get into listener questions and then get out of the way and get ready to enjoy week 1 of Major League Rugby. So Saturday, game 1 is 12 p.m. Eastern. Raptors at Houston. What do you got?
Well, so the Raptors, one thing for the preseason, I think they surprised a few people with the fact that they actually won games, considering the turnover in their roster and in their coaching staff and even in their front office. However, they at least seem to be keeping it together. However, when it comes to Houston, they dropped 2 of their preseason fixtures. Granted, one was against the Mako, whatever the heck you want to call them. But the other was a total blowout to the NOLA Gold. So luckily, the Cats, they only need to take on the Gold only once a year now, considering the divisional split. So right there on either side of the Mississippi River. Yep. But so no more. So I don't want to say no more of that Gulf Coast rivalry, but it definitely won't be as frequent. However, a shoddy performance against a team that missed the playoffs last season is definitely concerning. We know the SaberCats scrum is definitely packed, and I'm going to be interested to see how guys like Lutz especially fits in the back line and where they end up sticking Kalinisau and Pangilinan. But I definitely got to give this to the Colorado Raptors. I think Houston still has some kinks to work out, considering the coaching turnover, and I just don't get it. I don't know how they weren't more competitive against the NOLA Gold over the preseason. But if nothing's really changing in Houston from last season on the level of play, I don't think it's going to work itself out in the early season.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think Houston has kind of been maybe the most underperforming relative to expectations team in the first 2 years. So I think at this point, until they actually start performing better consistently, I think it's going to be hard to pick them against other playoff caliber teams. Now, obviously, Colorado did not make the playoffs last year. They were first on the table in the first season, so that was a downward trajectory for them. I just have a feeling that this is going to be a revenge season for Colorado. I know I've said that before. I think they're coming back to prove that last year was the fluke, and they brought in Renee Ranger. They brought in some talent. Until I see what's up?
Are you sure they've brought in Renee Ranger and Digby Ioane? Are you?
Am I sure?
They've signed them.
Yeah, I'm not sure of anything in this league.
They've signed them.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
So until I see Houston with a more consistent track record of beating the upper half of the league, let's say, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt for me. So I'm tipping Colorado in this one.
Mm-hmm. So and the thing about sorry to cut you off there, Aaron, but the thing about the thing about Houston, though, is it's not like they're short on any MLR vets. There's a lot of people returning, especially in the scrum. They have that, minus Pat O'Toole, they still have Charlie Connolly and Jamie Deaver returning to that front row. They still have people like Luke Beauchamp. Then in the back row, they have Sam Windsor coming back, like I mentioned, Pangelina and Kalinisau. This isn't a team that's looking to, rebuild a ton of chemistry. This is a team that's been together, have their own facilities, their own practice field, their own stadium. They have a pretty comfortable, arrangement when it comes to training facilities, in terms of strength and conditioning and stuff like that. So it's really hard to pinpoint what it is exactly in Houston that's causing, this habit of losing, despite the fact they have so many, talented players on that roster.
So two things. Winning is a habit and losing is a habit. So if you learn to lose, you start to lose a lot. And in the first two seasons, in the first season and change, before they made a coaching decision change, they learned to lose because they lost. They just, whatever it was, they just couldn't win games. But in addition to that, this is a hard pick for me, and I will commit to a pick, at least for our pick'em. But everything that we've dug in on, we didn't get to see a stream. I did see clips of the Colorado game against Austin, and here's the thing: so far, at least in that small sample size, the Colorado set piece struggled. Where they were better and where they've been better for 3 seasons is in the back line. If they can distribute the ball and recycle it pretty fast and get it to their flyers, because, yes, they bring in Renee Ranger and Digby Ioane are great, but they have guys, and they've kept guys that can ball, like, guy who was an under-20 All-American, I think, who was called into the Eagles as a 19-year-old, or no, 20. What is the prodigy's name?
Harley?
What?
Is it Harley or Mika?
No. Mika Cruz.
Oh, Mika Cruz, yeah.
Mika Cruz. Like, this kid is big. He's fast. He can cut. Like, if you get him the ball in space, you're going to score touchdowns. You're going to score tries.
But here's the thing, though. We've been saying this the last 2 years, though, is that Mika plays with a really raw style. I think he debuted it at only 19 years old, I believe, in season 1 of Major League Rugby. Didn't get a whole lot of time. Season 2, everybody was expecting there to be this huge jump, and I don't think we really saw it. He's still a very raw player, great in space and stuff like that. But when it comes to tight window passing and playing the technical game in tight spaces, I think he's still has a lot to be desired, but hopefully year 3 is going to be the year where he starts to put all that together, because the ceiling of potential in that kid, like you said, is astronomical.
In this game, for me, it's a pick 'em. I think I would lean more towards the Raptors. They have had a lot of positive changes. If you don't bring in Renner Ioane, who are they are 2 of many players still waiting on visa approval, and that's a question that's been asked. What is the league doing for visa approvals? Well, I know that the league now that it has a business history, co-sponsors every single visa coming for players coming in. So because contracts are centrally held, if people don't know that, I mean, that's been a mainstay of the league governance, is that every player, whether it's an elite player or a player coach or an associate player, their contract for their playing time and training is centrally held by the league, and teams pay a bond before the season so that players get paid. It's pretty simple, right? But then again, Houston, in the sample size that we've seen, has you somewhat concerned, right? They got walked over by NOLA a couple of weeks ago, and they struggled against the Baby Sharks, for better or worse, and it is going to be hard to pick them. I think when I look at this, the set piece is going to be huge, because what I did see is that when they held on to the ball, Houston was able to move against the front with intensity against the Mako. They did not hold on to the ball at all against the Gold. And that was a struggle for them. So if they win the set piece, we've seen that at least previously their attack has been disjointed, whereas Glendale, from what I understand, with the way they're running their attack, it's still relatively similar to the previous seasons. They don't need to win the set piece to win games. Like we saw that in season 1, and they still have a core of players that have been there from season 1 to season 2 that know how to play. So if they can just get their tempo right and not lose every scrum, they can win in this kind of like mid-tier game. Because that's what we got is 2 mid-tier teams from last season. I would say Glendale away, or not Glendale, but Colorado away by 4 is where I'm going.
This is a good time to remind everyone to join our Super Brew pool. You can hold these picks to us, though. Disclosure, they may change between now and the final lock-in. But
I locked my scores in already, baby. And I'm going Colorado minus
on Super Brew. On Super Brew,
yeah.
They might not be the same as right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, in order to remain consistent, I checked my Super Brew picks before putting it in the script. But I'm going Colorado minus 7 on this one. I think it's going to be a closer game than people give the SaberCats credit for. But in the end, Colorado gets this victory.
All right, I'm the biggest spread then, because I'm going Colorado by 9.
Ooh. All right, moving forward to game 2. The Raptors versus Houston, based on what my YouTube television tells me, is on ESPN News at 12 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And that's what my YouTube TV is telling me. So we haven't seen official announcements. I think that's going to be cleared up before Friday, but I don't know. We've all been asking those questions, and for a lot of reasons they haven't been answered yet. But so the next game, just to say when it is at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Old Glory travels to NOLA. That is game 2, and they are playing at the Gold Mine. What do you guys think?
I think tough way to start your MLR career here as an expansion team for Old Glory going down to NOLA. Obviously, NOLA last year very successful, particularly at home. They had in my mind, they were probably the most improved team in season 2 relative to season 1. So they've showed they could build systems. Now they don't have Tristan Blewett coming back, who was a big part of that build last year, but still, I think they have enough attacking weapons and a great consistency of most of their key pieces from last year are back, including the coaching staff. So I think Old Glory has a lot of talent, and I can't wait to see Beast scrumming in the MLR. But I think NOLA's going to win this one. I'm going NOLA by 8.
So I'm going to agree with you on the final outcome. Obviously, watching the Beast make his debut is going to be on everybody's minds. Overall, DC, they looked reasonable in the preseason for an expansion side. But I think pace is going to be the key in this. NOLA, they're a team with players who know how to move quickly, and that's even sans Tristan Blewett, who, as you mentioned, Craig, he decided to return to university in South Africa, get some development in there under some really good coaches, so big ups to that kid. However, they like we were just talking about, they put a beating on Houston last week, which was a team with plenty of veteran players in their own facility to comfortably train at. So I don't see an upset coming in this one. With the chances of an expansion team beating one of the original 7 are pretty low. So I'm going NOLA minus 12.
I don't know if the Beast is here yet. I know his visa is approved, but I don't know if he's on the ground. I did check Instagram just now, and there was no story from him, so we'll see.
I'm imagining some sort of helicopter flying in with a big cage dangling from it.
He erupts the ground.
He's ready to play, because I remember talking to Andrew Douglas last week on that show I work on. I'm not a personality on. And he was like, of the last 5 years for the Sharks, Tendai has, just because of he's basically an automatic starter he was previously an automatic starter for the Springboks. He didn't really do a lot of preseason. He didn't play in the preseason games. He just needed to be fit, and he's always been in excellent condition. So could he play? on Saturday? Yeah, he could, and it would be some huge pressure on the likes of like Ben Tarr and Kevin Sullivan and all of those guys. However, having if you win the set piece in this league, we've seen, that is what wins the league 2 years in a row. The best set piece.
What wins the league is if your maul is top tier, if you're in the upper, the upper half of the league in terms of your mauling ability, that's like the difference of 2 or 3 games in terms of your final record. I swear to God.
Oh yeah, big time. So if DC's set piece is good, it will be interesting to see what NOLA has done. But we saw what NOLA did against Houston, score-wise, and thankfully some people from the Go Gold group had some phones out. And, I think it's going to be difficult. I don't think that Old Glory will be an easy victory. But I think we will see the veteran team in this lead most of the game. They've just improved. They've gotten more depth. I mentioned, I think last week, Tristan Blewett has chosen to return to university, not in South Africa though. He is studying at the University of Surrey in the UK, and in lieu of returning to MLR. If he does choose to return to MLR, you could see him back with the NOLA Gold, because he did sign a 3-year contract, so they retain his rights for 3 seasons, unless he gets traded. So overall, that's pretty simple. He had a bunch of stuff come up in his life, and for him, he made the decision to go back to uni right away. And if anything changes, he can be back with the gold. But they brought in this Argentine that played with the Argentina 15, Julian Dominguez, who is, every bit as good, maybe better, which would be frightening to many teams, that there is a more frightening player than Tristan Blewett with the ball in hand when it comes to just gutting a defense. We saw last year that they had a really good set piece. What they didn't have was depth. And so, 3-year starter with Holden Youngert, and then, Scott Gale returning at 10. They
lost the Silver Fox though. We didn't touch on that when talking about.
Well, I think Taylor Howden will be missed for a lot of reasons, but given how little he actually played for them last season in the backfield, he was a bench player, which you need.
But definitely, he was a leader off the field.
Oh no, yeah,
that definitely can't be discounted when you're talking about rugby.
Guy, but the Gold have upgraded their roster. It's that simple. So you want to see them to take another step forward. Almost all of their American guys and all of their visa holders, from what I understand, they've got like 35 guys under contract. Over 25 of them stayed in New Orleans over the offseason. So the culture that's going to build for the team is going to be huge. It's just I'm going New Orleans by 10, -10 for NOLA.
Yeah, I'm going to be kind of near that same range for NOLA. I'm going to go NOLA -12 though, breaking double digits.
And I said NOLA -8. So we're pretty tight shot grouping on both these first 2 picks.
Indeed.
So moving on to Sunday, Game 3 at 3 p.m. Utah at Rattle. Broadcast information has not been released yet. What do you guys got?
So I know I said it in the last section that an expansion side beating an original 7 team is pretty unlikely, but I'm going to say not really in this case. ATL is definitely chock full of life, and Lindenwood grads who showed us over the preseason, they're already operating their offense at a pretty respectable level. A lot of these guys do have experience with one another after all. Utah, meanwhile, not a lot of noise in the preseason, other than, getting bought out by San Diego. They also had a documented pair of losses in Las Vegas while training with the Toronto Arrows. However, they are returning a number of really talented players who stood out last season, including Vani Colo, Gannon Moore, and the ever-exciting Joshua Whippy, who unfortunately will not be returning with his brother. Is it Jared Whippy?
Jared, yeah.
Yeah. So Jared Whippy will not be returning to the squad. People who might remember last season, both of them went out with broken legs in consecutive weeks. I believe it was
season 1.
Was that season 1?
Yeah, it was season
1. Wow.
They both had a rough transition coming into just coming off those broken legs because it was compound fracture, and it was rough for them, and we didn't really get to see the Josh Whippy we had seen when he got capped for the Eagles, and that was just disappointing. And towards the end of the year, when he was fully fit, we saw flashes of Josh Whippy, and it will be great to see him play this season. Doug Coyle, happy to have you listening in tonight. Yes, there is no ARC this year, and you know what? As much as I enjoyed that piece and the idea of a winter competition, I am so happy it is not in the middle of the season.
Yeah, that's why it's tough for the American fan base to come to grips with, even if that's normal in European rugby or what have you. That's going to be a tough way to win new fans around here. So I think it's certainly a well thought out strategic move, if nothing else, for USA Rugby. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think Utah has some bombs out there, but they also have some really good 80-minute contests. They were a playoff. People seem to forget they were a playoff team in the first season. Last year they weren't, obviously, but
playoff team.
Yeah, well, they
eked on in there. I'll give them that.
And they competed in their in the semifinals that year, and it wasn't a blowout. Last year they had some tough ones, but they drew with Glendale. They pushed New York to within 2 points in New York. So they are capable of putting together a strong effort. And I think it's only a couple of years of experience, and they weren't super successful years all told. But I think 2 years of experience is gonna show well against an expansion team like Rugby ATL. So I'm giving it to ATL, but by a small margin here. I'm going to say ATL by 3.
This is a team that was similar to Austin, torn down to the studs. They kept some key players like Josh Whippy, Arawa Elkington, the Alex Slim Tucci, Franco Vandenberg, Angus McClellan,
Gannon
Moore. But a lot of
you're talking about Alex Tucci, right?
Slim, his name Slim. Yes, Alex Tucci.
All right,
they kept some core players. Alex is still really rehabbing from I think it was a broken leg from last year, and but again, I think 60% of their roster is new, and then you couple that with new coaching staff. Completely new coaching staff. Part of that coaching staff is, known to the team in Ben Nichols, who's one of the assistants. They have a full coaching staff, and I love this. This is an epic investment that the whole ownership group of the Warriors got behind. It wasn't, a majority share of, as reported and not denied. A majority share was taken by the group that owns San Diego, and there have been questions about, is that legal? And I'm like, well, it has nothing to do with the legalities of the law, because this is a private business and it happens to deal with franchise agreements and the league constitution, and it's a single entity. So they just bought shares in the league from Utah's ownership, because Utah needed money. I don't know. And so now they have the primacy of running 2 different teams. And we saw this happened in the MLS If anyone pays attention, you go in there.
There's only like 4 owners in the MLS at one point with like 12 or 15 teams.
There were 2. It was Phil Anschutz with AEG. He owned 6. And Lamar Hunt, who owned 3. And so, like, they needed that. But you look at yes, we'll get to that one. But overall, for Utah, it's just going to be a struggle. It's just going to be a real struggle because they've done so much. There's so much turnover. I think this is going to be a building year for them. They have a good plan in place with director of rugby operations in Brandon Sparks. Then you have Scott Latham. Then you have Ben Nichols, Sean Davies, and Sean Pittman. 2 Seans, 2 Eagles. All these. There's a lot of international experience right there. Sean Pittman, Sean Davies, and Chris Latham. That's what it is. No, did I say Scott? Yeah, whatever. And but that's an investment that's going to take time. And we've seen, as you guys mentioned, what Rugby ATL did with their 404 Academy, what the life players did in the APC. And then we've already seen them play a little bit. They shocked NOLA in a preseason fixture and went up to Old Glory and played some high-intensity minutes. They did lose that game. But if we're looking at consistency of being together and consistency of roster, the majority of the Rugby ATL roster has been together for a period of years, a lot of them going through life and other programs together, a bunch of All-Americans. So, it's going to be a tough ask for a team that is going east. And I think if we're going to put a number on it, what did you guys put? I say Rugby ATL -7.
And I wasn't able to put my score prediction in there at the end of mine, but I'm going to say Rugby ATL -14. I'm going with some of the big point spreads tonight, apparently.
Yeah. All right. So far, we all picked the same people for each week. So for each match, we'll see if we get some different picks in this next one.
It's just so tough. There won't be because I think somebody is bowing. As a disclosure, Liam does work for the Free Jacks, so he will opt out of all Free Jacks picks going forward, but he might tell us a pick offline.
Yeah, no.
Pick in the Super Bros, so.
For God's sakes, the emails are sacred, but very secret right of the EOD clan.
So, what do you guys got? New York travels to New England, kind of. It is in Vegas at Sam Boyd, 4 p.m. on Sunday.
All right. Well, let me just say it's great to be opening up the Vegas series. Obviously, the Free Jack organization are honored to be bringing the first big MLR weekend to that city. It's definitely going to be great. Get your tickets now. Rooney, they're under a new coach, but they made a number of big name signings, including Bastro, and yet magically still under the salary cap along with San Diego. It's funny how math works in really large market cities in this league. But anyway, the Jacks, they're coming in with a scrum packed with plenty of effective players in their own right. Obviously, Hatakeyama is the main attraction there, but there's tons of players who are young and yet to even reach their full potential, including Denver Barbo, Evan Geist, flanker, and proud Ohioan Owen Hunt. Great player. Definitely keep an eye out for him. And the terrifyingly tall pairing of Connor Kinnigan and Jackson Thebes in the second row. I think the Jacks are going to work. I think they're going to actively work to get a lot of set piece opportunities. That means kicking the touch more often than not when it comes to playing the territory game. Not only will a lot of the aforementioned guys in the scrum make it easier in terms of the line out, in terms of the scrum, but they have a backfield led by tag leader, featuring guys like Danny Collins, Posa Wakanibao, and my personal choice for their preseason MVP, Mitch Wilson, who wait till the season comes. This guy can move and he can shift better than many of them. He honestly kind of reminds me of Viney Colo, but I'll get to that. All those guys, they can be really, really deadly when starting from a solid platform to run their starting plays. Rooney, however, they had a decent amount of retainment from last season in terms of a lot of their really effective players, and they ended last season as the second-ranked defense in the league, as well as some of the best clock control and ball control among the teams last year. So all in all, I think the Jacks, they definitely have a chance to win in this one, even as one of the new kids on the block. But it's going to come down for them getting the points when they can, because New York is a team that can make you pay if you make a mistake. Especially with that aforementioned ball control aspect to their attack. If you give the ball up, you're not very likely to be getting it back soon to make up for any kind of mistake that you made. So yeah, no prediction on that game, but Free Jacks win, of course.
Gives you insight.
Yeah. So there, I'll disagree with that last claim. I think it's hard to judge Free Jacks a little bit. I think they may be the hardest to pinpoint at this point because so many of their faces are not from the MLR, and they haven't had really any preseason fixtures against other MLR teams where you could judge their performance very critically. That said, I think New York is coming back with kind of all their key cogs last year, plus a huge international signing in Bastereau. I think he's going to be – I think all these centers that have come in, including Bastereau, are going to be tough on defenses. And Free Jacks who haven't had to –
Bastereau's number 8. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he played number 8 this past week in the Barbarians game. So maybe he'll play number 8. I think he'd be more effective as a center, I think, personally, in MLR.
As a fullback, man.
With Cal Marsh back, and I don't know if Petrie will be starting, but Petrie back, Dylan Fawcett, the captain, back, who was one of the top try scorers last year. I just think that's, that year under their belt is going to serve them well. And it's a home game for New England, but not really a home game. So I'm going to tip New York here. I'm saying New York by 5.
Yeah, but here's the thing is, though, it hasn't been that cold up here in New England. I really would have liked a nice home game to begin the year, but hey, if it's about spreading the word of rugby to Las Vegas, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, when it comes to this game, it's going to be interesting because it's really hard to tell based on what the preseason for New York has looked like, which was the New York Barbarians game this last weekend, which was pretty much one-sided except for the first 2 minutes when the New York defense did not get up from their bed until after a score was run 80 meters on them, and then it went to pro team versus select side type score. But overall, it's so hard to judge because there is limited film and it is not a new roster. A lot of good pieces have been added, but the coaching staff is different. And I think this coaching staff is going to, really push this roster to be better than it was in a lot of ways. Marty Veal was the scrum coach for the Sunwolves. I don't know how you get him back here, at least this season, because did anyone see the Sunwolves game this weekend? I
did not.
They took the Rebels out and they dropped them off a cliff. It was like 25-0, or might have been 35-0. I need to look. But the Sunwolves are taking no prisoners this season. So the fact that, even though they're out of Super Rugby next year, it is that they're paying coaches. So it's really pleasant to see Marty come back to New York. And then you talk about Greg McWilliams, who has been the attack coach for the Eagles the last 2 years. He's come up through the U.S. system as a high-performance coach, although he's Irish, and he coached the Leinster under-20s and has also coached, been the attack coach for Irish women in a game where they beat the U.S. in a World Cup. So, when it comes to what they're going to do on Sunday, I don't really know. I know that they're going to score points, and I think they're going to have a more dominant set piece. What I'm going to see from New England, I don't know. It's really hard to tell, but they did play, was it 3 or 4 good development games last spring
in the Carrot Cup? Yeah.
In the Carrot Cup.
Going 1-2.
So 3 games. That was really good development for that roster. So I think just because we're trying to get our feet wet here for New York with the new system in place and everything, I'm going to be conservative here with the scoreline and go New York -7.
Okay, so we're all still on the same page then, pretty much. Liam, we'll assume you picked New York by something around there.
Oh, go to
hell. Moving forward to Game 5, which is at 5 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Seattle versus travels down to San Diego. This one is – I need to look. Is this the game of the week?
Yeah, this is CBS. CBS.
It's the championship rematch, baby.
This is the game of the week on CBSSN. This is on the schedule. And, take it away.
Yeah, as Liam mentioned, it's the rematch of last year's championship. This is the second time that the season is open with a rematch of the last year's championship. So I like that. I like that tradition. And, in both previous seasons, Seattle was the champion who lost twice in the regular season to the runner-up. So I'm on record in my bold predictions article from a few weeks ago saying I don't think Seattle makes the Final Four this year. So I'm going to stick with that vein here and say, San Diego is probably my preseason pick for champion. So I just think, we've talked about importing people. They brought in Nonu. Probably, between him and Beast are probably the 2 biggest imports. Nonu, all black.
Takayama, baby.
He's good too, but this is a 2-time World Cup winner. Hard to any. I think he has something like 125 points in his international career for the All Blacks. So huge point scorer for San Diego on a team that was already the best team by record last year. Home game for San Diego. I think they take it down.
All right. So no disrespect whatsoever to the Rain City Dickfish, who are still, honestly, in my opinion, the most complete team in MLR today. But just listing San Diego's backline gives me chills. You guys, JP Duplessis, Makitea, Ryan Matias, Osberger, Odsley. I could go on with some of their new signings, but this team ended last year ranked number 1 in defense, and I believe they were number 2 in scoring. The fact that they didn't walk away with the Shield still honestly astounds me. But we can't discount the fact that Seattle is rolling in with a litany of great players themselves. They have Seema and Dean as a pair at fly half, so that's going to be great depth for them. Shalom Suniula is a solid vet. Nakai Penny, he's one of those guys who really showed us some of his true colors at the end of last year. And Reichert Hadding is, Reichert Hadding, and he's kind of a really good rugby player. I don't know if anybody watching is aware of that. Honestly, I think San Diego is one of these teams that can just spread the ball around at will. They can score at will. I think it's just going to come down to remaining consistent throughout the whole game, which is something Seattle's really good at. Just like I said, they're a very well-balanced team that can keep up the attack. They have a bunch of players with really, really good motors. But it's kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs. If they can drop 1 million points on you at any given time, but they just have some deficiencies with game management, and that's where any of their losses usually come. So in terms of my prediction, I'm going to go San Diego -8.
There's your chance, Aaron. There's your chance to time. Break the mold.
Before I dig deep into this, remember, if they want to win, they have to. So history says that the team that the fish that the Seawolves defeat in the final, they have to lose to twice during the season. That is the history of the league. So if they want to win the conference final against San Diego, because that's going to be the conference final. It has to be, right? Or at least my way too early prediction is that
not according to Craig Rodelli's bold predictions. It doesn't.
But in order to beat them in a conference final, they have to lose to them twice. So I'm going San Diego. But man, you talk about complete rosters. I know Patty Ryan's gone, but Mitchell just spent the. I mean, I'm going to get to one of those locks. If it's not the Italian one, Doug, then I have no clue. But I know there's an Italian one that is for real. But you just like Aaron Mitchell. He went down to not a provincial club, but a club in South Africa and played all summer. Devin Short was down there playing all summer. Both clubs they went to were daily training environments, so they just got rugby fed to them at a trough. And they like S&C, everything. So they are back and ready to go. And I think Aaron Mitchell will raise his hand. We've all been waiting for it, right? This guy was a high school All-American prop, and then went and, went out there to Fresno State and was a 4-year starter at guard. So he got more development out in a different sport. So they are going to have, I think, a dominant front row in this game. It will be interesting to see how Jake Yelnicki and Sears Justice Duru, Justice Sears Duru, why do I always screw that one up? The judge, as I say, the judge. It will be interesting to see what the Looseheads do against Mitchell in this one. And you look at their locks, they've got a lot of locks. Jeez. You talk about Stanfill, an Ironman. He's back. Siausi Mahoney is the most – I thought he was crazy fit here when he did get time. Like, he looked fit. He's leaner now and bigger. If that doesn't scare anyone, I don't know what would. Yeah. And then you talk about – I mean, the Magician is back. Joe Peterson, I think he's actually going to play fullback in his natural position, but he'll be captaining this side. And you bring in Luke Burton, who is the starting 10 for the Western Force, and he's just been tearing it up in the preseason. Yeah, it was against how they did, and it's really hard to tell what they did in their preseason. But for the most part, we saw the Seawolves do something against the Mako, and it will be, I think. That game prepared them very well for the level of physical intensity that San Diego brings to every game. But with it being home, I just have to go San Diego, whether it's this up front or those backs, because I'm not saying you could make two dominant teams out of this roster, but you could get pretty close. Like, they are loaded. SD, I don't know if I can go double digits, but I'm going SD -9.
Whoa.
So here's the thing. You want to do SD -10, but you just don't want to commit to the double digits.
I don't.
Have some cojones, Aaron.
You stay at 9. I'll take 10. And we'll stay with our very, very look, Earful Dirt, great minds. We're all aligned. Yeah.
I think this will be the first week we actually ever, in the history of the show for 3 seasons, that every game is completely aligned.
It's the first week we're all going to be wrong. Watch, every single one of these is going to be wrong. We go 0 for 6 or whatever.
Right, Utah blows out Toronto. Freaking
Utah flies to Toronto, blows them
out. Moving to Game 6. 8 p.m. Eastern.
Or AGs. Sorry, the Gilgronis blowing out Toronto.
At the Gilgronis.
The Jabronis. Sorry. I will recognize them as nothing else but the Jabronis.
They are playing at the Austin Bold Stadium at Circuit of the Americas, so that will be cool. According to my YouTube TV, it is on FS2. So just to let you know, according to my YouTube TV, it's on FS2, which will be at 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, the final game of the week. What do you guys got?
Well, so clear-cut victory for Toronto. I'm just going to come out and say that. But honestly, don't count out the Jabronis this season, considering their rush of signings under the new ownership, among a few other things. There are a few MLR vets on this roster worth getting excited about. People like Lerone White in the front row, who, in his own right, he's a pretty terrifying ball carrier, not just a workman in the scrum. Then you have people like Zinzan Elon Pudik and Roderick Waters in the back row. So we've all seen what Zinzan can do. He's a pretty good ball carrier, really good stable presence back there at fullback. He can also has some versatility moving into wing and at center. Roderick Waters, he hasn't played in any regular season Major League Rugby games. However, he spent a fair amount of last year's preseason with the Houston SaberCats, along with a lot of time with their developmental team, the West Houston Lions. It's hard to explain Roderick. He's not the tallest person in terms of stature, but he is built like a house of bricks. If you punch this kid in the chest, you might honestly break your wrist, whether or not you punch correctly or not. He can go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. I swear to God, I can't say enough about the athleticism of Roderick Waters. Great kid off the field as well. Just recently became a father a few months ago. So yeah, definitely get excited about Roderick Water if you're a Jabroni fan.
I might.
Look, I wasn't expecting to come into this as a pro.
Oh, Dan. Oh, and obviously Dan Moore. Just got to say Dan Moore for the sake of it. Great player for Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I think Toronto, as a Rooney supporter, I think Toronto's the team to beat in the East right now. I think they were burdened by a very tough schedule last year with their first half of their season away, and I think that and a year of experience for them as well. I think they're going to be very tough for anyone this year. Austin obviously was the poorest performing team last year. Boy,
what makes you say that?
What
makes you say that?
Yeah. Boy has a lot of games in the last few days, other than they're on their second name since last year. New ownership, new fields, new players coming in. They have Ashley Cooper from Australia. So
not here yet.
Yeah, none of these guys are here yet. All right,
Kurt Morath supposedly.
Yes, Kurt Morath. I saw that on American.
That's a yes. That is a yes. I don't know if he's here though.
Yeah. So I do think Toronto's going to win this one handily, but I also think the Gilgronis have a better 2020 in store for them than the Austin Elite did in 2019.
This one's going to be sideways. I really think so. I think, like Craig said, I think the Ags, the Ogs, whatever. I don't know what you're going to call them.
Jabronis.
The Gilgroni, the Gronies. We're going to go with the Gronies. We're going to go with the Gronies, and their season will be better. I think you have a solid coaching staff in place now that communicates with their players. And it wasn't just the French guy that wasn't communicating if you talk to them. But if you look at that roster, I think the Gronies of Austin has definitely upgraded. They've got some exciting players, especially as Alex notes, in the back line. I know that Alex is also trying to get an injury slot for the Gronies. Aren't you, Alex? They're going to be a better team. I think in this game they will even do some surprising things, but the consistency of Toronto, knowing their system, consistency of culture, they've added pieces, the consistency of coaching staff, it will be what is going to move them early in the season. And against a team that has had so much turnover, it's going to be rough when they play. But they did have a good outing against the Raptors, which I did mention. So I'm not certain that that Toronto, the Arrows, will have a dominance in the set piece. I think even so, maybe not, because the Raptors did not have a good scrum last year at all. So, but they won't. I don't think Austin will be walked over like they were at times last season in the scrum. I think they will have a very good time. There is a loss for the Austin side, if anyone is going on. Wesley White has been released from his contract. There are reasons behind that. Basically, from what I understand, he is actually not eligible under the 3-year rule, and was told that, which you would think, because he actually didn't go back to South Africa a lot during his period at Lindenwood, but he was told that he was not Eagle eligible now, and he has chosen to pursue other options. So it's not that, he was eligible, it's that he somehow wasn't. And this is where, these World Rugby regulations get really weird. But that's all I'm going to touch on for that. And this was one of the top, flankers in the U.S. Coming out of college. And because of some stupidity, we've lost, not on his part, but because of World Rugby. We're going to lose a guy who was ready to commit to the U.S. He was an All-American. This dude wore the shirt. He was ready. Like he wasn't going back to South Africa to try to play for South Africa. I think, I think there are opportunities that have come his way, and he will take advantage of those opportunities as well. So we'll see. But overall, score-wise, what did I put there? Toronto minus 16 is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and I'm going to go Toronto minus 20.
All right, I'll say Toronto by 14.
All right, so all kind of within 6 points, more or less.
So you got the official earful of dirt ticket here for this week.
It's all the same, just the points are different. So moving on to our questions from Bob segment. We took questions.
It's been a while since I've been able to do that.
On Twitter and on Facebook, but no one submitted any on Twitter. But from Jeff Kennett, Papa Kitty SD, he's like, seems like Furno is in North County via his IG. Is he back? I believe so. From what I asked some people, not confirmed by the team, but I asked some people around the team that Furno is back. Or he just really likes the waves in Cardiff. Cardiff by the sea, not Cardiff, Wales. So, yeah, that is going to be important, I think.
All right.
Going on to the next question for you guys. Matt Polanski at Matt Polanski 1 on Twitter says, what are your thoughts on the Herd rebranding as the Gilgronis? And what the heck is the actual Gilgroni?
So, Craig, I know you'll like this, but in the words of the great Landau Calrissian, I don't like it. I don't agree with it, but I respect it. And that's me with the Gilgronis. From what I've heard, it's going to be named after a forthcoming drink, and more than that, it's a rugby nickname of somebody who's invested in the team or something like that. Yeah. So the there's kind of a couple of elements of that question to me. The Gilgroni allegedly. So if you Google, but when this first broke, before there was a press release or anything, I think actually I saw Aaron's tweet that Austin had been renamed the Gilgroni. I just Googled Gilgroni. Google does not know what a Gilgroni is, but one thing led to another. They didn't know what a free jack was either, did they?
Someone was making jokes about this, and it was like, "Oh, this is the top 5 searches." No, the top 5 searches are the Ticketmaster, the Austin Gilgronis, and Like the 8,000 trademark applications they put in for this.
That's what I found. So not only has this organization, which it turns out is a Australian buyer of the team, owned by a guy named Gilchrist, but not only has they trademarked Gilgroni, but all sorts of cocktails with Gil jammed into the front of it, like Giltini, Gilgarita,
Gilachalada.
I don't know why they chose Gilgroni, which I presumably is a play on the Negroni, unless it's an egg chasers joke. I don't know why that would be the one. But first of all, I didn't think the Herd was a great name. The Herd is not exactly
right.
It was basic AF.
Yeah.
So I wonder. So if it's a play on a Negroni, so what you got in here is gin, vermouth, and Campari,
and Gilchrist.
So would you since it's Texas, right? Would you replace the gin with tequila, and not just 1 part gin, but would you make it 3 parts gin?
Yeah.
Well, more alcohol is always good.
I mean, from the press release, it described it as a Texas-sized cocktail to be released.
So like 10 shots of.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's just going to be a giant Negroni, maybe wearing a cowboy hat.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's going to have kind of like a margarita, kind of like a what's the hangover drink that's disgusting with tomatoes? Bloody Mary. Kind of like how restaurants like to get creative with Bloody Marys. Like it's gonna have like a whole rack of ribs, like like stuck in on a straw or like on a thingy, like on top of it. Yeah.
Oh man.
So I guess
Bloody Marys are disgusting, and I'll die on that hill.
I'll agree with you. Actually,
I don't know if it's brilliant or idiotic, the name itself. I guess we'll see when the drink comes out how awesome the drink is. I'll be in Austin this weekend for a rugby wedding for my club. Tight head Kyle Dean is having the big day. This is going to be some 40-odd New York rugby players ascending on Austin. I'll try to find a Gilgroni, but
I'm saying is with that name, if it was something else that was benign, they would have gotten no press.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought the Herd was pretty. I know the person who came up with that, and I know trademark stuff is tough, but I thought the Herd was pretty weak. I mean, Austin Elite was pretty weak, and this is just different, and it's fanciful, and it gives you fanciful. I mean, in trademark law, it gives you a ton more protections than. Austin Herd Rugby, which, there were herds in Austin when people drove cattle and all that stuff. So,
who wants to be named after the intimidating herd of slow-moving grazing animals?
All right. To the next question. Oh, we were supposed to point this out like 5 episodes ago, but I totally forgot because we were doing outlines and not scripts. Seawolves' number 1 re-signing of the season was Rugby the Seawolf. And to celebrate the top signing of their roster, you can now buy stuffed mini Ruckies for $20 on the Seawolves website. So you better.
He's got his own Twitter account now. I saw.
Yeah. So at Rugby,
stuffed dickfish sounds like a delicacy.
Oh gosh.
At
Rugby the Seawolf says, what do you think about Mike Tolkien saying he thinks Seattle are going to three-peat?
Well, sounds like Mike Tolkien's a little salty at somebody, but but not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, how could you count him out? I mean, Tolkien's forwards coach from last year with Rooney is now coaching in Seattle, Keith Lensing. So that's a vote of confidence in his former colleague. I mean, they're definitely one of the favorites. We've covered on this podcast a little bit my personal view, which is they're not going to repeat. But I love watching them. I mean, I wouldn't be mad about it. I just think, I think they haven't made enough progress compared to these other teams that are really arming up. So I'm going to disagree with Coach Tolkien on that one, but I think the Vegas bookmakers would put them in the top 3, for sure, odds wise.
They added some pieces, and I had that same opinion last year. I didn't think they got good enough. They didn't add the right pieces, and then the luscious, sexy man that is Brad Tucker. He proved us all wrong. Bradley, this is like with Dan Power. Like Dan had Dan Power, fellow podcaster, commentator, also has a love affair with Brad Tucker. Brad, like, oh my gosh, Brad Tucker, player of the year, difference maker, can play lock, can play 6, can play 8. I thought, but overall, I think they're a playoff team, but I think San Diego will have figured out what they've done wrong, and they'll get over that hump. That's what I think is going to happen.
I mean, they beat them twice last year, and
repeating is tough twice. And the circumstances for both years were basically a perfect storm, lots of drama, and it was, the team really rallied together. And I know that, now that they don't have all those crazy things happening, will that take away the fire? I think they're driven. They're professionals. I just think the odds of repeating a third time when you flip the coins is very difficult, especially when everyone else, I have to say, everyone else got better. And they got better too. But the question is, how much did they get better?
Well, here's the thing, Aaron. Look at the division system now, because they're not going to be playing. So you have Houston, you have Utah, and you have the Austin, Gilgroni, Jabroni, Magoni, whatever Onis. That's 6 games right there against. No offense to any of those teams, but bottom tier of the league.
No, this is where talent. I look at the teams in conference for them. We talked about that previously, that the East is actually kind of wide open by comparison.
Yeah.
By comparison to the West, the East is kind of wide open. If you look at the strength of those other rosters, Seattle conceivably has – I'm not going to jinx them. Conceivably, you would favor them in 8 of their 10 conference fixtures right now. Like, you would favor them in 8 of their 10 conference fixtures. And then if you look at the ones where they might not be favored, you probably favor them at home against San Diego, and you favor them really. You think San Diego is going to go up to the Fortress of Starfire and beat them again?
They did last year.
And with, I think it was 3-2, they had a red card, 14 guys.
And 100 inches of rain.
And both rain games they won. That was crazy. So it takes a lot to beat San Diego, but I think what I would say is in 10 of their conference fixtures, you probably favor them in 9. So that's going to put them in the playoffs. Easy, I think, because they only need to win 1 or 2 to get. They only need to win 1 more probably to get the 3rd seed, and probably just 2 more to get the 2nd seed in the playoffs for the West. So I just think it's going to be tough for them to get through San Diego and then also win in the championship, because it's just going to be tougher. That's simple.
Indeed.
Then this one, what was it? Palmer DeArmond, or at P DeArmond 33. This is a longer question, guys. With the 3rd season of MLR around the corner, do y'all think there will be an uptick in viewers and new fans going to games? Do you think CBS Sports should model NBC on how rugby in the U.S. is shown? And is there a process with these clubs? And what is the process with these clubs with introducing rugby to kids? I guess that's 2 questions. So let's work on broadcasting first.
So, in terms of broadcasting, like we've said, there isn't a whole lot of clarity. in terms of how the games are going to be shown. We know they're going to be shown on TV. I wouldn't have too much worry in terms of that aspect. When it comes to people attending games, I think there's definitely going to be an uptick. A lot of the OG7 have now had 3 years to establish kind of a community outreach facet, to their media and their marketing plans. So, and obviously up here in New England, we've been selling out the season tickets faster than we can even advertise them. So that's more or less the story with a lot of the other more popular teams. In terms of getting rugby out to kids, like at least up here in New England, we've been doing a lot of community outreach with schools, with local clubs, with going to community events such as Lawn on D in South Boston, which was a big community event for families. So
doing community outreach before broadcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, kick it.
So, what do you think? Like, what is the process that you've seen with community outreach for New York?
Similar stuff. They do a lot of school meetings. My wife is a principal of school, and they came and met the students there.
That must be terrifying to get into arguments with her if your wife's is a principal. Like I feel like, did you just wake up having anxiety of homework assignments that you had in 8th grade that you didn't finish? Like
she wins all the arguments, and I'm constantly in detention.
Jackie is a really lovely lady, so you probably would willingly lose every.
I do, quite right. But yeah, same stuff. I mean, they're obviously establishing their academy, which isn't youth per se, but it's moving in that direction. So there's probably a downward pressure, starting at the senior level that will work its way towards youth rugby. And then right now it's mostly community engagement stuff like schools, sport, local sports teams, local businesses.
I think we've seen, like, when you look at academies, Doug Coyle, listening to the show, he has a bunch of interviews. One of those with Sam Gillespie, the manager of Rugby United New York, and also the academy director for Rugby United New York. It's just like, we're still in this place where there's no strict definition of academy. There's no strict definition of senior academy, junior academy, and whatnot. We know that simultaneously different ventures over the period of time that Rooney has been in existence. They have a senior academy. I think this year they're going to try and reach out and at least have a sponsored U18 team, because there's going to be a U18 team apparently from Ireland coming over for a tour, and they want to upskill some of the local players and put the Rooney shirt on them. But a lot of the teams, Glendale was the first team to field an academy side, and it was like none of the other teams were in the same space to be able to do that, because Glendale has been a program for a very long time, and they basically played college teams in the fall, and that produced a bunch of players for them through their academy. Mika Cruz being one of those, and it's crazy when it comes to what academies look like. I think we're starting to. A lot of teams have senior academies. We're starting to see practice squads. Seattle has a practice squad. I think New York has a practice squad. So you're starting to see those terms being thrown out instead of senior academy, because senior academy, you tend to limit at 23, tend to be. So you're seeing development opportunities for local players who are willing to commit to the team, who currently also are willing to do it for free. And there is that opportunity for them to get signed, as we've seen with New York. 2 guys got promoted from the practice squad. They were willing to commit, and they pushed through camp, making no money in camp, and they got promoted based on merit. So there are these opportunities out there that are starting to spring up throughout the league for older senior players to continue their development. But then we look at community outreach. San Diego has a bunch of their players coaching different youth programs. We look at Houston is starting to push their players out to coach different youth programs. Austin has reshaped a lot of their community efforts. They're out in the schools. Seattle is out in the schools. And that's the biggest thing. If you continuously get in the schools all the time, these kids go, that's a professional rugby player, Mom. Can we go to a game? And so, we're starting to see that take more and more shape. And part of that is because salaries incrementally over the first 2 seasons are higher. So you can put more demands on your players so that they don't have to go to it. More of them don't have to go to a day job. So there's that one. Okay. That was long-winded. I'm sorry I talked so much, but broadcasting, do we think that CBS will go vertical? I know that CBS, so I guess the question is, do you think CBS has been the main broadcaster? I know MLR, well, I don't know this, but Brian Ray mentioned this, that if the numbers are good, the MLR probably wants to go under all one hat and via streaming and all that stuff. And I don't know if it's CBS or Fox or ESPN. If the numbers are good,
is it going to be Flow? Flow could be the wild. No, I don't even want to put that out into the universe. Never mind.
It'll all be on the Earful of Dirt Facebook page.
Hey,
I think it's hard. There's so little official data out there. We know the ratings for the championship last year were good on CBS. Just anecdotally, it seems to me that all these rugby properties are growing in popularity. Not super, super fast, but noticeably fast. And I think NBC is acquiring a lot more rights. Now you have the NBC Pub Pass available here in the States. That's a new thing. There's a lot of unofficial anecdotal signs to me that point to increasing demand for rugby broadcasting. I don't know if the increase is so big that it's reached a scale that's going to materially change anything from you as the fan standpoint. It's probably going to seem the same this year. But a few more years of growth and maybe we'll hit a level of size of demand that you see kind of a paradigm shift
this year because rumored FS2 and ESPN knows those are Nielsen rated channels, which is you get ratings for unrated channels, but they're not the same as Nielsen rated channels. And CBSSN was not Nielsen rated. So the numbers you're getting are from CBS and not verified by a third party, which Nielsen is. So this opportunity this year gets, by spending the extra money that it is on production for 34 more games to go on linear, they get to collect 34 games of data. Whereas last year there was 1.
Which is the championship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Tune in, folks. You owe it. You can contribute to the financial success of MLR by watching these games and getting the Nielsen ratings up.
All right. So last question from LL Rugby. Same as last week. Oh, man, this could be long. When will MLR start requiring teams to have their own stadium?
I'm just going to say year 10. Because honestly, building a stadium is a lot of work, and especially for some of these larger market teams like LA, San Diego, Boston, especially New York. Real estate costs a lot of money in those cities and is not that, and is not that easy to come by, especially, in terms of viable locations in regard to parking, public transportation. There's a lot of, there's a lot of aspects that go into building a stadium rather than just getting a big old plot of land.
Yeah.
I wish the Homestead Act applied to rugby, but it doesn't.
I mean, neither the New York Giants or the New York Knicks or hardly any of the teams that I support have their own stadiums.
Well, I mean, the Knicks don't even show up to play, so they show up to collect the paycheck. That's
basically
for sure.
Billy
They're not
Joel
doing anything when they get
point. The Knicks just borrow it.
So I remember this dates us all. I remember it before the spring, and Diana Anderson did an interview with Matt McCarthy that is on Rugby Wrap-Up's website, and they talked. There was going to be an establishment of a a media company called Rugby United Marketing. I don't think that's. I think the LLC exists, but I don't think there's been too much pushed into that because rum, yeah, sort of like some or rim. What? Yeah, and but I don't think we're at the point where we could take advantage of having our own rights selling company, But she mentioned in that same interview that there was the requirements that the league was working on, which there were 10 teams at the time, said that the minimum standard for the league was going to be control of a 4,000 seat venue. And if we look back, the only team that had control in season 1, the only two teams, so there were 3 teams that had control of a 4,000 seat rugby-ish venue.
Does the grass have to be connected to the ground in the venue? Is that stipulated?
So in season 1, you had a 6,000 seat venue in Torero. You had a 5,000 seat venue in Zion's, and you had a 5,000 seat venue expandable to 7 if they put the bleachers up in Infinity Park. Everything else was smaller than 4,000 except for part of the season when you had the Sabercats out at
Sugarland.
Yeah. So, and we've seen that the stadium stuff really hasn't changed too much. Austin went into a cavern in an 11,000 seat Del Diamond. We've seen now a 4,000 seat or 4,000 capacity venue go up at Aviva, and the Gold will move into a 10,000 seat venue in the Gold Mine. But stadiums are tough, man, and primacy. I don't know what this guy's talking about on this.
Nobody's talking about two-hand touch. So for the audio listeners right now, we're just getting some weird comments.
But
anyway,
yeah, it's just real estate's tough in stadiums. I don't think you need to be at the point. Every team needs to have a good lease and expandability to grow their fan base, because ticket sales for every single league in America are a huge part of revenue. They may not be a huge part of revenue for Super Rugby, but if you look at the NFL's revenue, game day revenue, which means ticket sales and merchandise, is over a third of their total revenue. So for this league, we need butts and seats. So, I mean, we're not at a point where we could just say, hey, it's all broadcasting. Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's it, guys.
Yeah, thank you, green shirt guy. That was a great that was a great spiel.
Yeah, next time we record, it'll be the season. There'll be some results.
Yeah.
We'll actually be doing game reviews and not just previews and wild speculation.
Do we have names for? I like the names for the different matchups. We got the Cold War. Any other? Does Seattle, San Diego have a name?
There's a battle there. I don't know if it's called the Battle of the Border, but Battle of the Beaver Dams is the.
I like Border War for Rooney, but
Border War is what they called it last year, and then I know Bill Webb's been calling it Battle of the Beaver Dams. We're going to call it Border War.
So I think Houston versus NOLA should be the Battle of I-10.
But what about matches that are happening this week? I mean, Cold War, New York versus Boston or New England is occurring, and any of these other.
It is cold. Dude, the barometer dropped, and it is freezing down here. I mean, it's 50. It was like 50 when I got on the train, so it's going to be cold in Vegas this weekend. May not be 20, but it's going to be cold.
It's a dry cold.
It's a dry cold. Okay.
All right, I'll think of names for next week. Seattle versus San Diego deserves a name.
Yeah, that definitely does. The Coast Fist Fight. Ooh, Coast.
Coastal Clash.
The Coastal Clash. There we go. Okay,
right.
Something. All right. Anything else?
Crunchy hippies versus surfer bros.
What are you guys' final thoughts before I let you go to bed?
It's 11:40 right now here on the East Coast, and I'm wicked tired, kid.
All right. Keep it real.
Yep. Thank you.